welcome back to another video. In today's video I thought we'd discuss how to deal with an anxiety attack. So as anxiety is becoming a more and more prevalent thing, it also means that anxiety attacks are becoming more and more common. Now I know the first time that I had an anxiety attack, I really didn't know what was happening. I couldn't explain even what I was feeling, what I was thinking. I just knew that I had to get out. And again, anxiety attacks are different for everybody, and as I mentioned in a previous video, for some people it can feel like they're having a heart attack. For others it can feel like they're about to pass out, or in some instances it's like for me, when you just have to run away from whatever situation you're in. So I thought I'd share some of the tips that I have personally used that have helped me calm down from an anxiety attack, and also tips that stop it escalating. The first thing that I would recommend is to go out for a walk. That's kind of what you want to do. You want to burn off that adrenaline, get rid of that energy, feel like you're going somewhere even if you're just walking in circles. That's the first thing that I would do, and it helped so much. It's the only way I got through school, university. The only thing I could do was walk. So it would get too much, I'd feel it all coming on, well, get outside, walk. Again, being outside and walking also made a difference, whether that's to do with the amount of oxygen you get or just being not trapped. It depends, but if you can get outside, walk around, burn it off, that is the first thing that I'm pretty sure would help. The second thing you want to focus on is your breathing. Now, this one doesn't necessarily really help that much with an anxiety attack. That's what I noticed. Like, people would say, do your breathing exercises, focus on a breathing square. And although it helps, it never solved it. Like, I'd never just not feel anxious afterwards. But it stops it escalating. So try to pay attention to your breathing. Try not to hold your breath. That was the other thing that I did for a long time. If I would feel anxious, I would kind of tense up, freeze, and just try not to move. Because anything that I did would make it worse. So I was like, don't move, see if you can deal with it. But I don't recommend that because it does get worse and you can't hold your breath forever. So try and breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and exhale for about 6 to 8 seconds. Again, if you can take a deep breath in through your nose, hold, and then exhale slowly through your mouth. It kind of induces that relaxation response, and that usually will lower your anxiety a little bit. The other thing that helped me a lot actually was mints, like polo mints. I would have a pack of polo mints every lecture I would go into, and I would go through half a pack, which I know is not great for your teeth, and if you can avoid it, I'd recommend it, but it is something that helped me for some reason, whether that's because it stopped me feeling hungry, or if it kept my mind a little bit distracted. It's something, again, that really did actually work for me, and it's something I'd recommend trying. The other thing that I would have, if I didn't have any mints, I would have a flavoured drink, like a Lucozade. That's what I would do, and it would kind of work, 50-50 with the drink. But the other thing is, speaking of drinks, if you have a drink with you or water, sip it, because that will again help you control your breathing to the point that you feel more relaxed. And for me, having a bottle with me, which nobody can say, no, you're not allowed to have a bottle with you, you can kind of distract yourself with it, and that's what I did. You could trace the patterns to try and focus your mind, read the label. Again, reading is something that is recommended and it can help a lot, but it didn't distract me enough to lower an anxiety attack. It would just be more frustrating than anything. But having a bottle with you would definitely, I would recommend it. The one thing I would say though, speaking of drinks, is I wouldn't recommend alcohol. I would go out to the pub and I'd feel super anxious, so I would order an alcoholic drink, thinking that it would make me feel better, but it never did. In fact, I think I felt worse most of the time. So when people think alcohol's the solution for anxiety, it's really not. I know that alcohol can help with nerves, but anxiety just isn't the same thing. And actually, by trying to mask the symptoms with alcohol, you can just make the situation a lot worse for yourself. So I would stay away from alcohol in regards to dealing with anxiety. Like, it doesn't deal with it properly. I mean, personally, I feel the same about most medications. It doesn't actually help that much. It might sound like a perfect quick fix, or let me lower my anxiety, but it just didn't have the right effect on me. I know it's different for many people, but that's just, I try to deal with the symptoms actually, like in reality, not through any substances. Anyway, I digress. So one of the other things that helped me a lot when feeling anxious was progressive muscle relaxation therapy. It's something that is really simple to do. You can do when you sat down or lay down, but it's tensing and then releasing that tension, each muscle group. So you'd start at your toes and you'd like curl up your toes, hold until it's almost painful, and then release. And then you focus on that relaxation feeling, like the little kind of tingly feeling that you feel when your muscle releases that tension. And that helped me a lot actually to relax. Not, it depends, because I didn't really give it a chance when I was out, but if I was really anxious the night before, like university or something, I would always use progressive muscle relaxation therapy in it. Worked every time. I also tried a Hypnosis CD. I mean, to be honest, I feel like it worked, but at the same time, I'm aware that I may have just fallen asleep. I don't really know. But Paul McKenna has a book called Controlling Stress, I think. And it's a great book with loads of tips in. Definitely recommend it, but it has a CD with it, and that is the CD I used. And as I said, it helped. But was it just that I fell asleep, or was I in a hypnosis kind of state? Not sure. I'll leave that for you to decide. One of the other things that also helped was focusing on other things, like calming things. But again, that's very subjective, because, when you're experiencing an anxiety attack, things are really difficult and it's so hard to control your mind. So actually, something that might seem like a great distraction actually isn't. Mindful colouring is a great way to focus yourself and to kind of induce some sort of relaxation. But for me, it wouldn't work during an anxiety attack. As I said, walking for me was the one that really got me through it all. So that's the one that I would always recommend. And talking. Again, talking helps with your breathing, it helps with your distraction, and it also addressing like the elephant in the room. If you just say to somebody like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious, I'm really not sure I could do this, even though you know that they can't really do anything to make it better, just vocalizing what you're experiencing actually helps a lot. So I would recommend it if you're around people that you trust, because it can make a big difference. And really, I think those are all the kind of simple tips that I use. I know meditation is a great way to kind of learn how to control your thoughts and empty your mind, but that takes a lot of practice. So what I'm trying to do in this video is give you tips that I used in the moment. So dealing with anxiety and overcoming it is a really, really long process. And I know that what I wanted at the time was just like, how do I deal with this horrible feeling? How do I cope with this? Because I don't just have time. I had my exams coming up, and that's what was really difficult, because it's like, okay, you're telling me it takes practice, it takes time, but I don't have time. I need to know how to deal with it now. And I think that if you learn how to deal with it sooner, it never really escalates to a point where you cannot deal with it at all. I know that, one of the things that's always talked about is avoidance. that kind of increases the anxiety. And my counter argument to that was always, well, you know, if staying in school when I'm anxious would teach my brain not to be anxious in school, I never would have had anxiety, because I didn't have it during, like, you know, up until I was 16, 17. So it came from somewhere, and just sitting through it wasn't really an option. I just couldn't cope with that. So I had to get out and go for a walk, which I know, again, is kind of frowned upon, because they say, well, you shouldn't avoid the situation, you should stay and stick with it. But there are times that you can't, and I don't think you should push yourself to breaking point ever. So take it easy. Do what feels right in the moment. Just make sure that you don't completely avoid everything and give up, but just try and deal with those physical symptoms. I wouldn't really recommend like running when you're anxious, because you don't notice how much you're pushing your body. That's how I ended up with injuries, and I ended up with dodgy knees, and I pulled a muscle because I was running when I was anxious, and I was like, oh wow, I've got loads of energy, this is great, I can run really far, and actually I wasn't at a fitness level where that worked. So I would stick to walking, power walking, maybe even cycling if you happen to have a bike when you're having an anxiety attack, but I would assume you wouldn't. So going outside, walking, breathing exercises, making sure you try to relax your muscles. Again, a simple one is just shrugging your shoulders, because you don't realise how much tension you carry in your shoulders. So if you kind of pull them up to your ears, hold them there, and then release, you'll notice how far they drop. So yeah, hopefully you found that helpful. Hopefully it'll help with anxiety attacks. Just remember that it will pass. It's not possible to experience an anxiety attack for a solid amount of time. Like, you know, a full day, you're not going to have an anxiety attack for 24 hours. It might come and go, but that's okay. Just remember, it will go, and you will survive it and get through it. So leave a like if you like this video, or comment down below any other tips or your experience with anxiety or anxiety attacks, and don't forget to subscribe, and join us next time.